Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the World Report. I'm Scott Crowfoot. We'd like to welcome to our worldwide expanding family the folks from Bolivia and Peru. Today's show is dedicated to the late Justice Antonin Scalia. God bless you, sir. On today's report, what effects will recent comments from the Saudi oil minister have on markets? Europe is collapsing as a new wave of migrant invasion doubles. President Obama is dead set on closing Gitmo amongst reports of former detainees being arrested in Spain and Morocco. A political science professor says there's a 95 to 97% chance that Donald is our next president. And our moment in history explores what appears to be history in the making. And now to our top stories. Apple versus the FBI, liberty or security. But first, we remember one of the greatest Supreme Court justices' life and legacy, as well as there should be a nomination process in the middle of an election year. Now, based on what congressional Democrats have said in the past, absolutely not. Joining us, with always, is Sage Insight economics blogger for USA Today Online and the World Report senior analyst, Maury Beschloss, whom you can follow at mbeschloss on Twitter. Maury, I have to say that when I looked on my phone and I saw the headline, I think it was a Saturday afternoon,
yes,
or Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and I saw it on Drudge Report. It was bold, Justice Antonin Scalia dead at 79. That was like a huge kick in the gut to me, and my reaction was so surprising that my wife actually ran in the room and thought something was wrong with me. I said, this is worse than something happening to me. This is possibly the worst thing that could have happened to the country and the Constitution.
I think you're right, because you immediately came to a conclusion based on a lot of facts that people don't have. This man not only was a great Supreme Court justice, you know, he was actually Reagan's second choice after Bork. You remember Bork had some problems, and
that's where they get the term "got borked."
Got borked.
Yeah,
exactly. And Scalia wasn't really that well known, but he may have turned out to be one of the great, if not the greatest, justice of the Supreme Court ever. He was a man. He was stalwart. He's backed every idea.
An originalist.
He had originalist.
The Constitution meant something.
Well, the point is he didn't side with the situation because he was, let's say, conservative. He sided with the truth and justice. That was basically what he looked for, and he realized he was fighting against some very difficult situations. I still think, by the way, the Roberts situation, there's something there that doesn't smell right as far as I'm concerned, and that was when Antonin Kennedy, who's sort of a middle guy, who actually came out against Obamacare and tried to persuade Roberts, you have to go with me because this thing is going to turn out to be a disaster. And Roberts was very stalwart. And
not only stalwart, he rewrote the law to make sure that it fit the president's.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. But what's even more strange is that he took off right afterwards for an appointment in Malta, of all places. Can't even find Malta. You can't even find it on the map.
There's no cameras, no broadcast stations, nothing.
I know. So you can come to your own conclusions as to what happened there.
And by the way, it was Anthony Kennedy, not Antonin.
I try to be familiar because I was introduced to him once, and he said, just call me Antonin.
And when you look at his friends, Scalia, Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg, I think that's a cute way.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yeah.
She's about as liberal and as leftist as it gets. And she looked up to him, and they were best of
buddies.
Friends.
Yes, they were.
Which tells you the character of this man.
Yes, exactly. Oh, she was about as, she was so far to the left, she almost fell off the side of the ship.
And I think that a lot of people on the left will say that Scalia was as far on the right as you could be as well. And they were probably correct.
I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Breyer are two of the worst justices I've ever seen, but that may reflect on my point of view. I thought one of those two would go before. I never even thought that he was a robust, Scalia was a robust, tough talking, tough smoking, tough eating kind of guy. And I think there were some rumors, that he might have had a pillow in his head. Then I understand that he had a lot of illnesses that probably got going.
I think anyone of that magnitude, you've got to at least investigate and find out.
Absolutely.
An autopsy should have been done.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories, but someone at that level, and he was at a farm and a ranch with the owner who's very, very friendly with the administration. So, I mean, I'm not saying there was anything dirty done there, but I don't think it was handled well. No, I don't.
It was handled in a way that would add to your suspicions.
Kind of like the Bin Laden story. He was murdered, taken out, and then buried at sea within 25 minutes, and no one had any pictures of it. The whole thing, just nothing smelled right about that deal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about the Scalia situation.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about it, and we thought that somehow there was going to be some kind of investigation, but the whole thing was quick, and I think the most disgraceful thing of all was that Obama not even showing up at his funeral, so he could spend the extra time looking for. No, he said he needed the time to get a nominee to put before the public.
The Democrats, including Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, very, very adamant about not allowing a Supreme Court justice to be nominated in an election year. Interesting how now that's all changed. And boy, do they hold the Constitution revered to their heart now.
Did you see that picture of Biden doing in 1992 when he said just the opposite?
Yeah.
These politicians, I mean, I've had it with them as far as I'm concerned. Almost all politicians are political. I guess that's why they're politicians. Have nothing to stand for other than to get elected and stay reelected.
And McConnell and Grassley having meetings with the president tells me that they're about to cave once again. They have never stood up once for the Republican Party, for the people of this country, and for the nation, in my opinion.
I can't think of any incident that would qualify.
So let me ask you, before we get into the FBI versus Apple, should there be a nomination process during an election year? Don't we have enough going on?
Well, it's not enough going on. You can always find the time to do it. As you know, as we speak, Obama has already nominated the governor. He rejected the nomination, not interested.
The FBI wants to go after the terrorist iPhone. Looks to me like they're trying to get in through the back door because they can't get into our iPhones right now. What do you feel about that situation? Are you for the FBI? Are you for Apple?
I'm for the FBI because Apple is making a fool of themselves because we're talking about national security. We're talking about the safety and welfare of the United States people. And these guys are trying to be holding them down, saying, well, we're breaking our basic commitment to people who use our iPhones. That's ridiculous. This is now a matter of safety, security, and survival.
Well, so then why can't the FBI just look into the one phone? Have Apple help them get into that one terrorist cell phone? Why do they need the code to get into every iPhone that's out there?
You know what I think it is? I think Apple is trying to make a point saying if you buy an Apple, you know darn well you're going to be secure.
Well, that's the one thing that I felt confident about this week was that the government can't get into my iPhone. I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point I think that they were trying to make. I really do.
On top of that, you've got a situation where they've helped the FBI in multiple cases, dozens and dozens of cases. So why not just look into this one cell phone or these two cell phones? Why do they need the key to the Apple platform? That's my question.
You too. Why does the FBI?
Correct.
I can't answer that. I think they were trying to make a big deal out of it for whatever political reasons they have in order to do so. I don't think it makes that much difference one way or the other, but I still think, to me, maybe I'm old-fashioned, I still think when it comes to the FBI and they want something, they should be given it because they're the only thing that stands between us and disaster as far as I'm concerned.
But again, my point is, why not go after the individual's phones and look at those? Why do they need the keys and codes to get into all of the systems? That's my...
Well, you have a point.
Because I had nothing to do with this. So why should the government be allowed to get into my phone or my wife's phone or my cousin's phone?
Well, they probably wouldn't, but the point is...
And the fact is they can't. And they're upset that they can't. It bothers them that they can't do it.
You have a point. I can't argue it.
But I'm asking you your opinion.
I don't have an opinion because I don't know that much about it. All I can say is the FBI felt there was some advantage to our security system to get into the phones, and consequently Apple felt by opening the door this would make them seem like everybody now is going to have their phones interfered with.
And so let me ask you this. Do you trust this administration with that type of technology and that type of intrusion ability?
I still believe that Comey of FBI, the head of the FBI, is a decent guy. So far he hasn't unveiled the email decisions and so on, which makes me a little dubious.
Yeah.
But if it isn't, if it isn't the FBI, then we got a real problem in this country.
I mean, if you look at what they did to General Petraeus over what he did versus what the Clintons were doing and have done, I mean, it's like taking a piece of gum versus Bernie Madoff. I mean, it's that stark of a contrast.
I understand your point of view, and I cannot argue with that point of view. I guess my normal instincts are old-fashioned, that there are things like the CIA and the FBI and the police. There are certain basic institutions that I venerate because they stand between me and the crazies that are there in multiple numbers.
And you know what the bottom line is? If this government had a handle on our visa program, that problem would have never existed in the first place.
Oh, there's no question about it.
So if we could control immigration and the visa coming and going, people who are coming to this country, we wouldn't even be talking about this because it would never happened.
Well, although I did talk to somebody the other night who is an American, and he has a passport, and he was born in Syria, and he said they took him off the plane as soon as he got up and grilled him for about 2 hours. So, you know, you hear both sides of the story, but by and large, I think you're right. We don't have a great security system. We never had to.
We need an Israeli-type mentality when it comes to security.
Well, you're absolutely right. We need, at this point, though, I don't think the American public has evolved to the
stomach.
Type of fear. No, the fear. Enough fear. You know.
So if we're attacked on a daily basis like they are in Israel, then maybe you take it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Well,
if your cities are being shelled every day.
The Patriot Act didn't come until after 9/11. You know, I think if there was another major conflagration of that type in this country, you'd have a lot of law changes.
You know what the Patriot Act is? That's what Democrats do in a re-election year. We need to step away for a brief moment. We'll return with our economic and energy update, global outlook, political insider, and much, much more. Remember, if you'd like to see the show again or just catch a segment, it's simple, it's free. Just go to theworldreport.org and click on the watch button.